Let's all spread love, not hatred. Have faith, have patience. We all have problems of our own, but it's up to us not to take it out on everybody else. Whatever I could do, I help. Appreciate what you do have, cause I done been through it myself. Now I remember how it felt. I used to think life wasn't fair, but it is. We gotta be a voice for the kids. Look baby, you are black and beautiful, so never be ashamed of your skin. See, ours don't crack when we older. Love your culture. The media is all vultures, trying to steal what we got. They can't pull it off cause they not us. Yeah, just celebrate life. But if you gon' do it, make sure you do it right. Like, no more violence, shots on me if you graduated college. More power to you if your living's really honest, cause Lord knows that's the hardest. See, it's easier to fail than it isn't, and criticize cause you're different. But you can do it, I believe in you. I'm just hoping y'all listen.
I'm just trying to make it like a buzzer beater, even if I have to run in labels with a dozen Ninas. Man, these A&Rs greet us, hey, nice to meet you. Then turn around and be faking and cousin Skeeter. The big homie shooting blacks like Aldridge, so I enter getting points on the low like Kawhi Leonard living broke with a broken home. Hella family there, still feeling home alone. I was stressed out, but I'm blessed, y'all. And I ain't never embarrassed to swipe the Quest card, and I ain't never too good to work for that check, y'all. We keep killing each other, so no respect, y'all. More power as a team, we a threat, y'all. Trying to get it on my own, that's the best look. Or had a trap house jumping like Westbrook. Feeling good, feeling great in the hood with an 8+1 cause it's late.
Love for sale means you can love someone else. Man, I'm with you whether right or wrong. We'll dab it up and just move on. Help each other to be strong. Oh, cause I love you. It don't matter to me whether or not I know you. You want a half a liar, do you want the whole truth? Yeah. Are you my bro or no? Are you my sis or no? Fam, we gon' be fine cause I love mine. No matter what, I love mine. All the time, I love mine.
I love mine like nobody could. You got some flaws and I do, and they might evolve through our youth. So I figured why not interfere where somebody should. Let's get to making some minds up for most seeds wind up in the soil off of flowers in somebody's hood. Shots fired on the late night. Know you tired of taking L's, let's take flights. Leave all of it in the past, no brake lights. Even though we hurt, I see its beauty in the pain. Without it, I don't know if I value it all the same. I can't front, I shed tears, but I'm grateful. Here, so I'm thankful. I ain't still walking around with grudges or hateful. We could spend our whole lives in a sling behind the wrong things and spend time teaching all our daughters they queens. Kings and our sons, they heart as pure as they seems. When he look in the mirror, I hope he see what I mean and he understand.
Love for sale means you can love someone else. Man, I'm with you whether right or wrong. We'll dab it up and just move on. Help each other to be strong. Oh, cause I love you. It don't matter to me whether or not I know you. You want a half a liar, do you want the whole truth? Yeah. Are you my bro or no? Are you my sis or no? Fam, we gon' be fine cause I love mine. No matter what, I love mine. All the time, I love mine. Oh, if you hate me to death, man, I love you more. Oh, take my hand.
There we go.
There
we go.
To the stars together.
Love mine. It is it really is about love, and we need a big, huge, healthy dose of love right now. A lot of folks are attempting to figure out what's going on in this world. And before we even get started, we have to say condolences and send a lot of love and positive energy out to Boulder, the families, the communities, and just everyone. Like, love is the key, and I'm gonna leave it right there. A big day today. I've got to talk to you all, and This is another one of the big area plan meetings. This is like the big area plan meeting. And I'm letting you all know that Brother Jeff has a stake in a $2 million investment. It's a conservation easement. And what that is or what that isn't, I believe should be determined by a judge and not a lot of people who are just talking about it. I believe now that a judge should come in and tell Brother Jeff what his stake is in a $2 million conservation easement. Like, I want the judge to tell me. And the reason you haven't heard the judge talk about this, and what I'm talking about, is the property at the Park Hill Golf Course. A lot of you may or may not be familiar with that, because some folks are telling you that it's none of your business, and some are saying that it's all of your business, and some are saying, well, if you're black, it's your business, and some are saying, well, if you live in a particular radius to the golf course, it's your business. I'm saying that if you are a tax-paying citizen of the Mile High Income City, you have a stake in the big area plan, because your dollars were invested in what's known as a conservation easement, and they didn't ask you in terms of your tax dollars what was your proximity to the neighborhood. And for those of you who keep saying that it has something to do with the black neighborhood, raise your hand if you believe Park Hill is a black neighborhood. Raise your hand right now if you believe Park Hill is a black neighborhood. And we'll just kind of go from there. With that being said, I got to hit you with the trigger alert. This is a show that triggers people because you've entered a free think zone. If you're not willing to be exposed to other points of view, tune out now and don't read the comments. You have been warned. As it relates to the property, the Park Hill Golf Course property, and why I continue to talk about this is because I'm telling you I have a stake in it, and I just want to know what it is. I want to read something to you before I bring in Jim Gibson. Now, he's been through what we're going through, and he's studied certain things, and he's been a part of a process that I believe kind of mirrors what we are about to go through on this part of town. And so we're just getting in front of certain things so that we will know what to expect. Let me give you a little background. The Loretta Heights campus was purchased by West Side developers or investors. The name I'll get right sooner or later. But Jim was on the ground with his community and neighbors once the property was purchased, and they came up with a plan in terms of what they'd like to see in terms of their community. Like they have these good neighbor agreements that I see in certain communities where you just can't come in, purchase something, and say, this is mine, and I'm going to do whatever I want. You've got to go through zoning. You've got to go through certain processes. And Jim did that. They had a whole plan. They did all of the groundwork, and then I understand that the city said, nah, we have a different process that we want to go through. We're going to go through a small area plan, and you're invited to our party, but what you have is kind of not going to drive what's going to take place. That being said, there are a lot of people in Park Hill right now that are small area planning. They're visioning. They're doing a lot of different things. And I'm telling you, at the end of the day, if the city doesn't say that's what they want, all of your work may be in vain. I'm just letting you know that. Now, Jim, I want you to listen to this before I bring you on, because today's class, we're going to talk about metro area districts. Metro area districts. And the reason we're bringing this into the big area plan discussion is I believe that in the toolbook of development and developers right now is this metro district thingy, and I'll bet you a dime to $1,000 that there's going to be a push to make the Park Hill Golf Course land. I think it's like 155 acres of metro district. So with that being said, we better be familiar with what that is. So when it comes forward and they say, hey, a metro district is kind of what we want in our area plan, and you're going to say, what's that? And you're going to be like, it sounds good. What is it? Well, the Denver Post did a story on this back in 2020, June 26, 2020. And let me give you one headline. It says, Metro Districts, Debt and Democracy. Debt and Democracy. A Denver Post investigation has found Colorado's metro districts create billions in debt, leaving homeowners with soaring tax bills. Now, before we dig deep into what a metro district is, I want to read a little bit of what the Denver Post article had to say, and then Jim is going to. I'm just going to turn it over to Jim to just let him take us to where we need to go in terms of this planning, because he knows exactly what these metro districts are. The article says the 2-story, 5-bedroom place just east of Loveland was as sweet as T-Line and Tyler Sturkle dreamed it would be. From the custom finishes in the basement to the granite countertops and in-suite master bedroom. Then their first property tax bill arrived. Already on a tight budget, they stared at the bill that had gone from $818 at their closing in 2014 to nearly $3,500 barely a year later, then $4,400  2 years after that. We were suddenly buried in property taxes we couldn't afford, T-Line Sturkle said. The mortgage on the house we could afford just fine, but the taxes murdered us. We never saw it coming. Their $312,000 home was one of more than 1,900 planned for a community known as Thompson River Ranch, a 650-acre development on the edge of Johnstown. About 650 of those houses are finished today. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about 650 acres. I'm about to tell you about 155 acres or something like. I'm going to show you about a lot of land in just a second. Let me just. I'll get all into those details. But it goes on to say nearly half of Sturkle's tax bill, and the reason it had shot up so quickly, went to Thompson's Crossings Metropolitan District number 4, the quasi-government metro district that controls the area where they purchased. The district's tax levy was the only one to increase each year they were in their home. Metro districts are taxing authorities created by subdivision developers with the consent of the local government for the sole purpose of selling government-like bonds to finance their projects. Repayment on the bonds is tied to future property taxes assessed to the homes that will eventually be built. A Denver Post investigation into the inner workings of the state's 1,800 metro districts found a governmental system that operates without the usual oversight of voters, without the usual restrictions of conflict of interest, and without the usual checks and balances to ensure communities won't spiral into insolvency. And Brother Jeff will add this. That sounds exactly like how the Mile High Income City is run under Mayor Michael Hancock, whom some of us call King Hancock. That being said, I'm going to stop reading the article and I'm going to jump over to Jim Gibson. And Jim, welcome to the show. I want to ask a quick question. Is what I just read kind of shocking to you?
Well, it was when I first read it. I have been working on this issue now for about 2 years, and this is like peeling an under, brother Jeff. It is like you take one layer off and you find a problem. You take another layer off and you find a bigger problem, on and on and on with these metro districts and how developers are using them to exploit future metro district residents.
Well, you know, with that being said, I was just shocked because, again, there's this big controversy, and I'm just saying this. It's a huge conversation in our community around the purchase of all of that land known as the Park Hill Golf Course. There's a conservation easement. The two parties I've now realized are in partnership together, the city and the developer, and neither one of them will take each other to court to really get the true answer to what a conservation easement is. And so in the community, it's floated out like, well, this is what it is, this is what it ain't, this is what it is. And I'm saying, well, Brother Jeff can also ask a judge what that process is about, because I'm a stakeholder. It's just not two, there are three. And if the city doesn't want to, i.e. the mayor or the city council or someone attached, I think the judge should answer to Brother Jeff in terms of what does my conservation easement even mean? What uses are appropriate? or even allowable before I get drawn into a planning process and discussions about what we want and what we don't want. And what I read in the Denver Post around the usual, there's lack of oversight of voters. There's these conflicts of interest. There's the checks and balances are gone. That's exactly how this city is run. And I don't trust the mayor. I don't trust his administration, and few people do. So I think I want to go to court, and I also want to know about metro districts, because I know this is going to be a tool in the toolkit for some reason as that development begins to take place, if in fact it does. So what would you advise? And you're going to share with us today what metro districts are, so that we can at least have an understanding of some of the tools that are coming our way.
Yes, and this is all I'm not really making the assumption, but this is kind of a what if case. If they get that conservation easement lifted, this could be the way that they finance the infrastructure to develop that particular parcel of land. So, I wish you the best of luck in keeping that easement on, but should it be lifted, this could be the way that the developer proceeds. And I have a PowerPoint that I'd like to share with you and your audience. And I hope that you and anyone in the audience in the comment section, if they have any questions along the way, please just stop me and I'll answer that question, because this is unfortunately, very complex issue that has been subject to a lot of manipulation and exploiting of loopholes. So can I share my screen now?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
Okay. Hopefully you're seeing, I'm hoping that the audience and you are seeing my PowerPoint now.
Yes, I am. We are.
Okay, excellent. Just to give you a little bit of background, this again about this topic of metro districts. I came across this when I was involved. I had been on your show to talk about the redevelopment of the Loretto Heights campus. And a week after that, the planning process had ended, that small area planning process you had mentioned earlier. A week after it ended, I learned that there was going to be a new metro district placed on the campus. Again, there's no one living there right now. And this is a typical technique that Colorado developers use when they have what we call a dirt district. A dirt district meaning there's no infrastructure, there's no homes, and of course there's no residents. Okay, it's an unimproved lot, right? Which could be the case with Park Hill Golf Course, all right? So they use this for these what we call dirt districts. The developer basically sets the boundaries of what the property is, and then it applies to the city. In our case, it applied to the city and county of Denver City Council. Okay, and so the purposes of these metro districts have evolved over time. There was an intended purpose. They're a creature of state government. It's a governmental unit. It's a creature of state law. And the legislature had a specific intended purpose in mind. Unfortunately, there's now an unintended purpose that I think as a result of loopholes in the law, as well as the way developers have manipulated these metro districts, they've turned into something else, and we'll get into that, okay? Why metro districts? Frankly, from the developer's point of view, why not? And we'll see why this has been such a lucrative course of action for them to take. Is this really democracy? Taxation without representation. This was one of the major principles the country was founded on, was taxation without representation. And in many developer-controlled metro districts across the state, you'll see that the people who live there don't have representation and actually no voice when it comes to their future debt and taxes. And metro district residents are the one who pay. Okay, they actually have to pay higher taxes to pay back the bonds that the developer-controlled Metro District Board issued to finance that infrastructure. And here's what I find to be even more troubling. Non-Metro District residents around the Metro District can also face risks that they hadn't faced before, okay? And then I'm part of a group called Coloradans for Metro District Reform, and we have a pretty straightforward solutions on how this problem can be solved. So that's basically the table of contents of what we're covering. Much of what we're going to be focused on is the unintended purposes in metro districts. Do you have any questions at this point, Brother Jeff? Or?
No, I think I'm following, I'm tracking. I'm really interested in seeing all of the ways that systems come into communities and say that they're really there to help, and those intentions may be good, but there are always those who figure out a way to churn those intentions into something else that results in big profits, such as, we were told that charter schools would be great and individually neighborhood control, and then it just turned into a great big Walmart box stores all over the city. So it looks like these metro districts had a good intention, and I just can imagine there's some folks getting filthy rich off of what those good intentions were actually put in place for.
Okay, well, let's go right into that. What was the original intention? Okay, these are my words now. They're basically new governments that get created under the authorization of either a city or county. And these boundaries are drawn, and the people who will live within those boundaries, they have to pay higher property taxes to pay for the improvements like, roads, sewers, all that kind of stuff. To pay for those improvements, they have to pay higher property taxes. So the Metro District Board issues bonds. They use the proceeds from those bonds to pay for sewers, roads, water lines, all that kind of stuff. And then the future Metro District residents pay higher taxes to pay back those bonds. Does that make sense? So that's the original intention of it. Unfortunately, again, as I alluded to earlier, there has been, because of developer manipulation and loopholes in the law, there is now an unintended purpose. And this has now become a financial tool for developers, basically to increase the profitability of their residential developments. Okay, and they have basically shifted the risk of the infrastructure financing from them to the future Metro District residents, who in most cases don't exist quite yet when that Metro District is first created. So in a better world, what would happen is a developer would buy land, okay? They would then either go to a bank to get a loan, or they would use their own money, and they would also build infrastructure. They would build roads, streets, that kind of stuff. And then they would build homes and sell those homes to residents. And then the cost of all that infrastructure would be included in the cost of the home, right? Because it costs money to build that infrastructure. Someone has to pay for that, and it would only make sense that the people who are benefiting from it would pay for it. But that's not how these metro districts are being used right now, and that's what this second unintended purpose is really what the focus of the presentation is, okay? Why metro districts? Why not? Okay, let's go through the process again, and this is exactly what happened with Loretto Heights. Loretto Heights, even though there are some buildings on it, there are no residents on it, so you can consider it an unimproved lot, right? It's a dirt metro district. There's no residents, there's not residential infrastructure there, and so forth. So the owners of the property apply to in our case, the city and county of Denver, city council, and then the counties and cities routinely approve these applications, and then an election is conducted. You have an election, okay? And the folks who own property within that metro district have an election. Well, in the case of a dirt metro district, nobody lives there right now, right? No real residents. The only people who own property there are affiliated with the developer. So the only people who are voting in that election are developers, developer employees. Is this making sense? Because it's weird.
Well, it's real. We call it wonky, but I'm following along because it sounds like do they have terms like MCA? Because I heard the Master Community Agreement or something over there in the neighborhood formerly known as the Ku Klux Klan, but now it's called Central Park. They have a kind of a governing body that would say, we can't change the name, and they set up votes and all those. Is it different from a neighborhood association or a HOA or like what? Yeah. Because when you say new government and elections, I'm like, we're electing folks to set up new governments for us?
Yes, we are. And it is different from a homeowners association, okay? It's different. It is a separate, sometimes they'll refer to it as a quasi-government. It's not even a quasi-government. It's a new government, Okay, it's a new government. It has a board, a Metro District board, that performs the functions of a mayor and a city council. And in the beginning, the only people who own property and have a right to vote and serve on the board are affiliated with the developer, because there's no real residents there when it's just a dirt district.
They set up the government from the beginning. The only folks who are able to participate are the owners. The only owners are the developers. And so
you got it.
And like, it sounds like futures trading. Like, you know what I mean? Like commodity trading, where you go in and you say, well, I'm going to buy this bundle at a certain price. So you don't have to assume the risk, city council, city of Denver. Why don't you just let us do it, and we'll handle it. And they're like, well, we don't assume the risk. We'll pass the risk on to you. Sounds like a good idea. Let's all shake hands, and I'll buy some property over there, and then I'll be a voting member in my new government.
Right. And the cities and the counties, including Denver, the cities and the counties approve these metro districts, because then they don't have to finance the infrastructure. They don't have to pick up the tab for both the building of the infrastructure as well as its maintenance.
Okay. I got you.
Okay. So again, there's one election. It could be there's just 5 voters in that initial election. Only 5 voters. They're all affiliated with the developer. Okay. And they have an election. The first question that they ask on that ballot is, do you want to create a metro district? Of course, they all vote to say, yes, we want to create a metro district here. Okay. They can also, at their option, they can pass a series of ballot initiatives. And one of those ballot initiatives that they typically employ in this is they will waive the future tabor rights of those future metro district residents. So now anyone who buys a home there will not have the ability to vote on future debt or future taxes. That will all be the purview of the Metro District Board, which again is all manned by developer employees.
Okay.
I hate to give you all this bad news, Jeff, but this is how it's been done.
I mean, I knew it was bad, but I just didn't know how bad it was because of how, these kind of handshakes behind closed doors work. So I'm hearing you form a government. The only folks that can vote are the ones who own the land, and then they get around Tabor by saying the first order of business is let's not cap what we can tax.
That's right.
Which goes back to the Denver Post article where a person closes at $800 in property taxes, and every year it goes up $2,000-$3,000. There's it never stops. It's a bad credit card payment.
Basically, that's what it is. It's like if you have a credit card, often a Metro District resident will not even be making the minimum payments. So it's interest upon interest upon interest.
This is criminal.
And this is not a small thing in the state, Brother Jeff. Over 1 million people right now live in metro districts across Colorado. This is how you do development in Colorado right now. Virtually all new growth, especially along the Front Range, involves metro districts.
Oh, my goodness. I'll let you continue. I'll let you continue because I know I'm going to have plenty of questions on your conclusion, but I may jump in here and there, and I'll also watch the comments.
Please don't hesitate to do that. All right. Okay. As if we didn't have enough, there's another troubling aspect to all of this. Okay. This is an actual illustration of a metropolitan district. You had mentioned that home. I don't think it's the same metropolitan district in Loveland, but this metropolitan district is called Leaf Farm Metropolitan District number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Same development, but it has 4 metro districts within it. Okay, hold on to your seat here. All right. You see District 1, it's a very small parcel of land. No one ever lives in this district. This is the boss district. Okay. Real residents eventually will live in District 2, they'll live in District 3, and they'll live in District 4.
Oh, wait a minute. That big area is not District 1, that's District 2. This little yellow box is District 1?
Yeah. See that little thing? In the case of Loretto Heights, it's 66 by 66 feet. Okay? And so what happens here, again, there are no at this stage of the game, there's no residents living, real people living there, okay? There's, the developer owns all this property, and the developer is going to be the only owner for the foreseeable future in District 1. So before any residents get on here, we have something, this is getting real wonky now, so hang in there. Between District 1 and District 2, there will be an intergovernmental agreement. There'll be an intergovernmental agreement between District 1 and District 3, as well as between District 1 and District 4. What that intergovernmental agreement does, Brother Jeff, is it makes District 1 the boss of District 2, it makes it the boss of District 3, and it makes it the boss of District 4. Okay? And right now, each of these districts, again, it's one development, but there are 4 districts in this case of Lee Farm. Each of these districts has a Metro District Board, okay? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, when a real resident moves in here, let's say into District 2, there'll be a home in here, they're eligible to serve on that board, but before they even are there, these boards are all manned by the developer-affiliated people, the boards of Districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they're basically made an intergovernmental agreement between themselves. You will see on the agreement, which is basically a contract, you will see the same person sign both sides of the contract, and it will be the head developer. Okay? There are no real residents here yet, right? All these arrangements are set up before a real resident sets foot on the property. Are you still in shock?
I'm beyond shocked because I know that there are very intelligent people that are in governing bodies and governing places. They're on city council, they're in high elected positions, they're in working positions, and they know exactly that this is taking place, and something inside of them is saying that this is all right. You lost me when I said a government sets up another government.
I know that, yeah, that happened in the case of Loretto Heights. City council authorized an election, okay, if the people within the Metro District were willing, they could set up their own Metro District. Well, of course, the only people who were in that Metro District in Loretto Heights were affiliated with Westside Investment Partners. And they agreed, they had an election, 5 people, 6, 7 people voted, and they said, yeah, we want to create a Metro District. Sure.
Oh my gosh. I'll let you continue, but as we think about the big area plan and folks are visioning, I think that I'm going to make a motion to the big area plan folks that as they vision, the first order of business is saying we do not want a Metro District. I don't know what you do want, but one thing you're not getting is a Metro District on that Park Hill golf course. So I'm just saying, everybody who's listening, I'm going to make a motion later on down the line that we don't know what we do want, but we absolutely know that when the city comes in and starts talking about Metro districts and everybody shakes their head saying that sounds like a good idea because you don't have to pay for the roads and you don't have to pay for the this and you don't have to pay for that, it's like, that's not a good idea.
Well, when this happened with Loretto Heights, Brother Jeff, again, we found out 1 week after the planning process had been completed. We found out that there was an application from the developer for a Metro District before a city council committee. That's when we found out all those numbers. We found out how many residents were going to, projected to live there, all that kind of stuff. We found it out, and then when we raised that issue, they said, well, there was a mention of a Metro District in the small area plan. It turned out it was in parentheses, by the way. There was a mention of it, okay? So that was taken as the community wanted to have a Metro District on the campus of the Loretto Heights.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow. When do we figure out when they filed for an application? Like, how do they do that? Like, how do they petition the city council to even consider a Metro District? Who do they give that to? How does that work?
They develop what's called a service plan, okay? A service plan meaning that there is a parcel of land that needs some infrastructure financing, okay? And the service plan is submitted to, in our case, it's submitted to the city council. Out in rural Colorado, it could be submitted to the county commissioners, okay? But for us, it's city council. And then city council reviews that, and the decision that basically city council is making is that if they approve the service plan, then an election is authorized to be conducted by the people who own the property within the metro district. And at that time, when it's a dirt district and there's no real residents, the only people who are owning property there are affiliated with the developer.
So with it being in, say, for example, I think Kevin Flynn was your council person. Yes. I'm not sure. Did he carry it? Because it looks like in Park Hill, the one who would be carrying it is Chris Herndon, who, he authorized and participated in an election that allowed folks who had more property to have more votes, like with that name change. When they were saying they couldn't do it, what they said is only homeowners could vote. So the seniors and everybody, even business owners who were renting or leasing property, they didn't have a vote. If you owned a home, you had a vote. If you had two homes, you had a couple votes. If you owned commercial property, you had larger votes, etc. And Christopher Herndon participated in all of those shenanigans. I think that if a metro district is presented, he's the one that will carry the water into city council. We're doomed if that's the case.
Well, that's typically what happens is the local district councilman will be the sponsor. Wherever that metro district is, if the metro district is in the local district councilman's district, then he will carry them. And at least what historically has occurred in Denver is that the other city council members tend to defer to that district council.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll let you continue. We're on the Why Metro Districts, Why or Why Not page. Jim Gibson is giving us a clinic on these metro districts, and I believe that this is a tool that Westside Investments will attempt to utilize if, in fact, that conservation easement is lifted. And there's precedent because after the small area plan, which superseded the plan that Jim Gibson and his community had already done work on, as soon as that small area plan was approved, the parenthetical note in there about metro districts made its way into the development, and that's what we're watching right now. Jim, I'll let you continue.
As I've learned time and time again, it's important to read the fine print. Okay, why metro districts? Why not? Well, the district for all developers across the state itself has become a significant source of additional developer profits. Okay, so the traditional way of doing this, what I would call the good old-fashioned way of doing it, is you're a developer, you buy land, okay, you either get a loan from a bank, so you can put infrastructure in, streets, sewers, water lines, all that kind of stuff. Then you build the cost of that infrastructure into each home, into each lot, and then the home buyer, that's how that infrastructure actually gets paid for, right? Well, this now, in addition to building and selling homes, they're making money from just the creation of the metro district, okay? One is that they're lowering the risk of the project, okay? Because it's not their money that's financing the infrastructure, it's future metro district's residents' money, or they don't have to go to a bank to get a loan so that they could build the infrastructure. So they've shifted the risk away from themselves of that infrastructure financing to those future metro district residents. So any investor always wants the same profitability but less risk. So they have found a way to have the same profitability and less risk. Okay, so that's become, and what is even more egregious about this, and let me walk you through this because this is bizarre. A developer-controlled metro district will often issue bonds for infrastructure. Okay, they issue the bonds, it's debt, and sometimes they will. It's again, the developer controls the metro district. They issue the bond, and then the developer company itself will buy the bond. So the developer is both issuing the bond because it's controlling this, quote, government, unquote, Metro District Board, and then the developer buys it as a buys that same bond as an investment, and they just sit on it and collect interest, which again is paid by the future Metro District residents. So that's another way that they make money actually from the creation of the Metro District. And so if the project was to go south, right, let's say, the real estate market has been pretty robust lately. Home prices are going through the roof, But, usually that ends when it ends, right? That's not probably going to last forever. And if a project doesn't work out, when it comes to the infrastructure financing, the developer is off the hook. It's the district residents now who have to pay back that debt, not the developer. Okay, so they're the ones that are taking the risk. The developers, in effect, shifted the risk of the infrastructure financing from himself to the future district residents. Is that all making sense?
I mean, it's real wonky. This is another profit. A profit. It's another revenue stream. The Metro District is another revenue stream that they sell and purchase the bonds, which goes back to oversight or lack of oversight. It's a new government or a quasi-government that was allowed by a elected government. Who watches this government? Like, who are they accountable to?
Well, that's one of the issues, Brother Jeff, is that when that developer comes to that authorizing authority, which could be a city council or county commissioners, when they come there, the city council or the county commissioners could put a bunch of conditions into the service plan. It says you have to, provide reports on a monthly basis, all kinds of, things that where you can monitor and watch what they're actually doing. But typically cities and counties, including our own city and county of Denver, did not include those kinds of conditions in that service plan. When they approved that service plan, it was a service plan that the developer wrote, submitted to city council, and city council didn't amend it. They just approved it.
Okay. Continue.
I feel like the bearer of a lot of bad news.
I know, but you know what? We got to know these things because, then we can make decisions. Like, the first thing that I'm looking for is I want to see who the person who walks in the Metro District opportunity into the small area plan or the community. I want to see who comes in with that backpack and says, hey, I want to show you guys something. And I'm going to grab some popcorn. I'm going to be like, here it comes.
I got some land for you in Florida if you want to buy, So what happens with all of this? This has become a problem statewide, not just in Denver, but statewide, because developers are doing this all over the state. Well, there's a lot of the same people, the same developer executives control the taxes and operations of many Metro District boards. Okay, so Joe Smith, who's the developer, he can sit on multiple different Metro District boards, and he's determining the taxes and the debt and the operations of those many different Metro District boards. Okay, so he's not just one person, one elected office. He can be one person, and in some cases, I actually found one developer executive who sits on 73 Metro District boards. Government. These are governments now, right? Okay. So as you well know, and of course they don't live in the community. They don't live there. They live in that small little postage stamp that's 66 by 66 feet, and they control the other districts. Okay. You know who the new owner of the Park Hill Golf Course is. Okay, and they already operate a number, and they serve on the boards of a number of different metropolitan district boards. Okay?
Oh, are you telling me Westside Investments? Like, if we were to look up like owners or principals in Westside Investments, you would find those individuals sitting on multiple Metro District boards across the state?
That's correct. Okay. So in the unfortunate event that if that easement is lifted on the Park Hill Golf Course and they get to redevelop that property, and they decide to put a metro district in there, it will be controlled by them. It'll be a developer-controlled metro district, okay? And they have experience with this. This is from the Department of Local Affairs, which is the state agency. They maintain all this information. West Side executives already occupy a total of 111 metro district seats.
You bring in receipts. Jim is bringing receipts. Like, everybody, go to brotherjeff.com, make a donation of any amount, because you would be paying for credits to get this kind of information. You'd get a doctorate level kind of degree or something right now. And I'm just saying, I'm not even talking about the Park Hill Golf Course at this moment right now. This is even superseding my interest, and I'm very interested in my conservation easement, but you're telling me that all of these individuals that are saying they want to go into partnership with West Side is already in partnership with 111 metro districts. They occupy 111 metro district seats under the names of Andrew Klein, Otis Moore III, Kevin Smith, and Mark Winkletschetz. Oh, man, this is. I mean, if we were to stop right here, this would be enough to say, hold up a second, let's see what's really going on. But I'm going to let you continue. Jim, you're giving a clinic, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome. This is again information from the State Department of Local Affairs. Okay, they maintain who occupy all these metro district seat boards. Okay, so this is what we have. Again, taxation without representation. These developer-controlled metro district boards, they drown residents in debt for decades. When you introduced this subject at the beginning of the show, you came up with a great example. I forget where was that metro district, Brother Jeff? That was up in Loveland, I think.
Yeah, that was in Loveland.
Okay, so that's a prime example. This is a quote from that same Denver Post investigative series on metro districts. This is a bond attorney. Her name is Sue Maxwell on the Meadows Metro District, which is along I-25 in Castle Rock. She said, there's so much debt outstanding, they, meaning the Metro District residents, won't ever see it go down. Okay? It just becomes this upward spiralingly debt that, in her mind, for this particular Metro District, the debt will just never go away. So obviously, to pay back this debt, you have to increase property taxes. That increases the cost of the housing, by definition. We've seen in one case where property taxes rose by 5 times in just 2 years, which was, along the lines of what the case that you cited up in Loveland at the beginning of the show. These property taxes can skyrocket in a very short period of time. There's a real risk that they're going to promote gentrification in the surrounding communities. These are going to be high-cost homes. That's going to put a lot of upward price pressure on the surrounding communities, right? That's nice if, you own the home and your property values go up, but your property taxes also go up. And in many cases, some people get pushed out of the neighborhood because they can't afford to pay the property taxes. Okay?
I mean, this is an incredible tool of gentrification. This is like the steroids. Like, you've got a slide here that says raising property taxes by over 500% in 2 years. Like, Jim, we just fought payday loans and predatory lenders. This is even worse. This is getting someone into a home that they know they're never going to be able to pay for, not because they can't afford the home, but in the example that I read in the opening statement of the Denver Post article, that couple went straight into foreclosure. They didn't have a chance.
That's right. That's right. Again, it's their financial neck that is on the line. It's pretty hard. You can be obviously thrown out of a home if you're not paying your property taxes. So from a bond investor's point of view, if they hear, oh, it's going to be, these bonds are going to be paid by increased property taxes, they're pretty sure they're going to get paid back. Because if they don't get paid back by the current owner, that home goes in foreclosure and someone else picks it up.
Predatory developers. This makes predatory lenders look like kindergarten. This is amazing. Jim, are you willing to share this presentation with the free thinkers? Like, or are they able, how can they get it? Can they email it? Can you like this needs to be shared?
Absolutely. Anyone who, you tell me how to distribute it and I'll get it in anyone's hands.
Shoot me at the end of this, shoot me a copy of this particular presentation. And I would like to also use this presentation as a baseline for understanding, because if there's a different argument, I would like to see what that argument is. Like, I would like to hear, what is it about raising property taxes over 500% in 2 years sounds like a good idea. But if you want this presentation, go to brotherjeff.com. You don't even have to make a donation. Just we'll get it to you. Don't worry about that. We're going to let Jim continue presenting this information. And everybody on the small area plan and every member of the big area plan, and that's everybody who's watching this is required reading. So we cannot, like, when we have our big area plan meetings, if you are not clear on this particular information, you're going to, be marked tardy, absent, or we're going to put you in another class where you've got to know this. And for those of you who are in the small area plan with the Park Hill Golf Course, we're going to make sure each and every one of you get this presentation. It's coming to your mailbox immediately.
Well, that's great to hear. Well, let me just walk you through this next chart. And let me just, we're assuming that there's a home that's worth $500,000, which in the Mile High City is not, what do you call it? The
Mile High Income City.
Income City. It's not unusual to have a home worth $500,000, right? So I just took this as an example. This is a home, their property taxes, okay, that a regular home in the city and county of Denver, what they would pay on a $500,000 home. And then this would be what a Metro District resident would pay if the developer charges the taxes that they're authorized to charge on the additional taxes that they're authorized to charge. So that Metro District resident will still pay the same amount of taxes to Denver Public Schools, okay? Same amount of taxes to the city and county, and also to the drainage district, right? But then on top of that, if they live in the Loretto Heights Metro District and the developer decides to charge them the maximum tax rate that they can, they will pay another almost $1,800 to pay back the bonds that they issued. They will pay, basically it's a yearly fee for operations and maintenance of about $535. And then they'll also pay what they call a regional levy. A regional levy is, we're getting real wonky now, but that basically goes back to the city and county of Denver in case that there's widened roads outside the Metro District, that maybe there's roads that are outside the Metro District that have to be widened because of all those new people in the Metro District, but the roads are outside the Metro District, so Denver uses this money, for example, to widen those roads. We're not talking small change here. This is almost doubling someone's property taxes that they would otherwise pay in the city and county of Denver.
That's how the Sturkles lost their home. They said they could afford the property. It was the taxes that kept doubling every year to the point of their dream house was just basically a bad credit card debt.
That's right. So it's, again, they have to pay all the taxes the rest of us do, but they got to pay these additional ones up here as well. Okay.
Okay.
And this is going, it's just not Loretto Heights. This is happening in Metro District after Metro District across the state. So as you can see, there's very little democratic accountability here. Very little, right? The residents, when all of these arrangements are set up, the residents weren't there when they were set up. The developer, people voted on those ballot initiatives that took away their Tabor rights. If you're a regular citizen of Colorado, like Tabor or not, you have the right to vote on any future tax increases, and you have the right to vote on future bond debt. When the city does its bond issues, for infrastructure, it has to go to the voters to have that approved. All those rights are waived within that metro district for those folks. So all of those decisions are going to be made by the metro district board, not the residents. Okay. So again, it's only the developers people voted in the initial election, and you bought a home and you don't know what you got yourself in. You're locked in. Okay. And so you're kind of in many ways, again, and I have to confess to this, I have a background in finance. But fortunately, I did not buy a home in a metro district, but I did not read each and every document when I sat down in closing. I have to admit to that.
I haven't done it either. I haven't read my notices in terms of how I can use this social media and what rights I've given up. I have no idea what those little fine prints are in terms of that credit card and all of those different things. And I do know how to read. This is one of those situations to where once you get involved with it and you figure it out, they're just going to call you in that little room and they're going to pull out that packet that you signed and they're going to put it in you and say, you agreed to this.
Right. That's right. That's your signature there. And now you're obligated. And so even after they bought the home, they're voiceless. They're still often unaware, that, again, we just talked about that stack of paper at closing, you're just signing your life away there. Okay. You may have initially low property taxes, but as we've seen in many metro districts across the state, those things can go up like 5 times in just 2 years. And folks are saying, they look at a lot of people, it took me a while. It took a lot of, when I did all this studying, I finally understood my own property taxes in a non-metro district situation. But a lot of people who are, just regular people have not taken the time to figure out their property tax statement, right? Even when they're not in a metro district. A lot of people say, what do you mean I live in a metro district? They don't even know that they're in a metro district when they get that first property tax bill, let alone that there's a metro district board. And let alone that metro district may be completely controlled by the developer. So they're kind of stuck. I mean,
you have to be stuck because according to what you're saying, it was set up when no one was there. The only people who own property that were able to have a voice are the ones that created the development. And by the time you got your home, the rules were already made and everything was already put in place. And even if you were to get appointed onto that board, the central area actually controls all of the other metro districts from, 69 by 69.
That's right. The boss metro district, right? The boss metro district, which is usually district number, Loretto Heights Metro District 1 controls Loretto Heights Metro District 2.
And they have an whatever word you used, relationship.
Yeah, I know. I know I'm being characterized as a wonk. It's an intergovernmental agreement.
An intergovernmental agreement. Yes. See, but all of us in the big area plan, one of the things that we're going to have to make sure that everyone in the big area plan is very educated and has a working knowledge of all of these complexities. That way, nobody's going to be able to run down on us and say, well, Brother Jeff, you're black. And I will say, that I have black leadership and black people have lost everything that we have under said leadership. Don't talk to me about blackness. I don't want to hear it. The color's green. The color is green.
And really, what I hope to achieve here today is that this was sprung on us down here in Southwest Denver for the Loretto Heights campus. I don't want this to be sprung on another another part of the city or another part of the state for that matter. And there is the potential, nothing has happened yet, but it's always best to be prepared. There is a potential if West Side does get that easement lifted, they may use this Metro District tool as a way to redevelop.
And you've got very good reason to believe that. We're forecasting, we're talking about patterns. And if West Side is already on 111, I'm pretty sure that this is a tool in the toolbox. I don't see it as not a tool. We're just saying in the visioning plan and in the small area plan and in the big area plan, we're going to be asking about metro districts, even as they start talking about visioning in terms of what we want as a community.
I think that'd be great. So now these are real governments, these metro districts. They're governments. They have a board that, again, performs the functions of a mayor and a city council. And so they have periodic elections. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know, even the people who are living in the metro district will not know that there's an election going on. So they're often, the developer will just stay on and remain in that seat. When, frequently there's no competition, so the election gets canceled. And so the people who are on there are just rolled over into the new term. We've seen a case, this actually happened up in Green Valley Ranch, which the developer up there is Oakwood Homes, okay? They have same arrangement. They have a very small boss district, okay, that controls these other districts where real residents live, okay? Sometimes a resident will figure out the fix that they've gotten in, and they say, you know what, I need to run for the board because my taxes are getting out of control, okay? Well, what has happened, apparently this actually did happen. This was reported in David McGoy's Denver Post investigative series in the Denver Post. What happened was Patrick Hamill, who is the CEO of Oakwood Homes, made huge contributions to residents who wanted to be on the Metro District Board who were friendly to the developer. Okay? So they had an election for a Metro District Board seat. According to the Denver Post, he pumped nearly $40,000 into the successful re-election campaign of two developer-friendly candidates in Green Valley Ranch.
Who are they? Who are they?
You know, I honestly don't know their names.
I know one of them is Christopher Herndon. I know one. When you said Oakwood Homes, I'm like, Oakwood Homes.
This is in Green Valley Ranch.
I know, but Oakwood and all of that whole situation, you're getting into charter businesses and charter schools and $1 billion of annual budgets and all of those that, like, oh my goodness, you've just opened up a whole nother discussion, but I'm going to have to let you continue because I'm sure you've got more to share.
Well, this is the spot that a homeowner is in now who's bought into a metro district, right? Is that they don't have any recourse. They've already bought the house. They're locked in. They've signed off, on that huge stack of paper at closing. Okay. So they look at their property taxes and say, this doesn't look right. This is much too high. Typically what people would do is they would call their local city council person, right? And say, hey, what's going on here? Right? Well, the local city council person, in some ways you could justify it, says, I have nothing to do with the metro district. Of course, they may have approved the creation of it, but they don't have anything to do with the operation of the metro district. Okay? You've got to go to your metro district officials. And so the poor homeowner will then go to their Metro District Board, which they just found out existed, okay? And they could find out that the Metro District Board is totally occupied by developer executives, all right? So they really have no recourse. They can't go to their local city council person to complain and get some redress. And if they go to the Metro District Board, the developer is probably not going to be have a sympathetic ear.
The same game is played when you say quasi-governmental agency. It was very interesting that I learned that the Denver Housing Authority, just because it has the authority, they don't have any authority except for the authority that's given to them by the city of Denver, which will say that they don't have anything to do with DHA except that the mayor appoints their board.
Exactly.
And so when they sold the projects, they sold the low-income housing. When they sold the subsidized housing to developers, and then they tried to say, "Well, we don't have anything to do with DHA." I'm like, "Oh, here we go, here we go." And you're just unpacking so much; it's unbelievable.
It's similar, Brother Jeff, because again, City Council had to be they were the initial authorizer to have an election to create this new government. Although they could continue to, conduct oversight of it, they choose not to. Okay, so after they create it, their hands are clean. They don't deal with it anymore. Okay, and then that metro district, which again is being operated and controlled by the developer, is in charge.
no recourse to local and district elected officials. Like you can't even go complain to your governmental officials because that you elected because they gave permission to another government to be established that they don't have any control over.
That's the sequence of events. That is the sequence of events. So there's very little transparency. Again, we just mentioned it, no outside oversight. Although city council, they could put it in that application that the developer makes to them to initially create it. They can put conditions in there, but they typically do not. Okay, they just kind of wash their hands of all of it. So the resident doesn't have any control over future debt, their own future. It's really their debt or their, property taxes. Very little transparency on how the debt is actually used. I've heard case after case after case of where residents are saying, we issued a multi-million bond and we don't know what it went for. Okay, we don't know, did it go for a pool? And they can't get a straight answer from the developer-controlled Metro District Board. And we do see, in some cases, there may be vendor overpayment. There has been Brother Jeff, there's an industry that has grown up around this way of development. You have accountants, lawyers, bond attorneys, obviously developers, and they get real close with each other, okay? And sometimes, and there's, anytime, I'm always, I hate to I wouldn't want someone else spending my money because I don't think, presumably they would spend it as wisely as I would. And at times, we've seen cases of where vendors are actually being overpaid because it's such a, I'll scratch my back, you scratch my back kind of community.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
Okay.
And then this is my term, private governments. These private governments, these things called metro districts, private governments that can be controlled by the developer, they can condemn private property. I hear a lot of conservatives who are really upset about things like eminent domain. The government shouldn't be able to go in here and take my property. Well, a Metro District Board has the authority to do that unless that authorizing authority, in our case, Denver City Council, doesn't allow it. They typically allow it. And so they're indebting and taxing district residents. They can move money all around, again, with very little oversight, very little accountability.
Oh.
This is a Google map. You'll see the perforated line here that's the Loretto Heights campus. This is all in Southwest Denver. And I'm using this for illustrative purposes. A similar arrangement could be set up on the Park Hill Golf Course. Obviously, the property taxes on the campus are going to be pretty high, right? They're going to be much higher than what the regular Denver County resident pays, okay? So that's going to put upward price pressure on those homes and put upward price pressure on the homes that are surrounding that metro district, okay? So that could result in gentrification. And the other thing that it does, Brother Jeff, and I think this is really, really important, is that obviously there are going to be high taxes within this district, and there could be as a result, there could be higher taxes out here. And so if the Denver Public Schools needs money, these people are going to be less reluctant to vote for that tax increase because they're already paying very high property taxes, okay? So if there are other public purposes that come up, like schools, maybe we have to do some infrastructure in the city, these people are not going to be as willing to pay higher taxes because they're already paying very high taxes as it is. So that is a real long-term problem for the city. This group that I'm involved in, this is my last slide now, Coloradans for Metro District Reform, we think that the long-term solution to this is very straightforward. It's not rocket science. Metro District residents should be able to serve on their own boards and be in charge of their own futures, their own future debt, as well as their future taxes. Believe it or not, if you live in a Metro District, you know how we have citizen initiatives for every jurisdiction in Colorado? I can go out and say, I want, I guess actually there are petitions, I think, being circulated to concerning the conservation easement on the Park Hill Golf Course, right? You get enough authorized, qualified voters to sign a petition, you can put something on the ballot and people say yes or no. People in Metro districts do not have that right. They don't have the right to put a citizen initiative on their own metro district election ballot. So we want to give what every other citizen in Colorado has, we want to give that same right to metro district residents. And then we also want them to have the right to vote on future tax increases and any new bond debt. Really, really straightforward, right? We're asking the state legislature to say, really, are these things really necessary? We'd like the state legislature to kind of take a big picture look and say, do we really need these things? And assuming, if you think we need them, is this really the most cost-effective way to finance infrastructure and residential development? And what we're asking in addition, we're asking, with the notion that if you're in a hole, you should stop digging. Until these reforms get in place, we're asking that local governments not approve any new metro district residents. So thank you for giving me all this incredible amount of time to explain what is an incredibly complex issue. And unfortunately, Brother Jeff, complexity is one of the friends of the developers. This is a really hard thing to explain, let alone understand.
Well, I could tell you, Jim Gibson has just given another incredible presentation in terms of not only the experience that they've lived through in terms of what happened with their community around Loretta Heights, but what Park Hill can actually expect, or at least be on the lookout for. And we owe you a great deal of gratitude for sharing, because a lot of folks do not share their experiences openly, and it allows for others to experience the same consequences and miss the patterns until it's too late to really recognize. I like what you said when you're in a hole, stop digging. That sounds like I don't know how you get around that kind of logical statement. When you're in a hole, stop digging. And what you have just shared with us is that, there are governments that are being set up that are outside of the control of citizens. And this is probably one of the reasons why we have one of the fastest gentrifying cities in the nation. The Mile High Income City is super expensive, which, as you can see, individuals have to pay extra. They have to deal with all of these kind of intricate relationships, and those who are making the money are always finding someone to give some money to that will come into community and say, this is a good deal. This is a good deal. And so I believe that, there are well-intentioned individuals, but what we have to do is continue to present information that will allow people to make intelligent decisions. Rafael Espinoza says, why not also prevent metro districts from entering into IGAs? Why not prevent metro districts from entering into IGAs? You think that's a good idea, Jim?
Why not? I mean, that would stop that boss district from, being in control for the foreseeable future. Again, it's that little, what we call a postage stamp. It could be 66 by 66 feet of land. The only people who own land in that district is the developer. And then again, before those real residents come on to those other metropolitan districts within the same development, that agreement makes that district number one, the boss district. So if the boss district tells district number two, we're issuing bonds and we're raising taxes, district number two has no choice but to listen to the boss.
Okay, well, let me just take another flip side of this argument for just a second, Jim. Are we highlighting just some of the, we can find bad in everything? We could find something to poke at and everything. Are there places where these metro districts are just doing swell? This is where's the other side of this? Hooray for metro districts, and this is the example of why this is necessary. And when you come into the Park Hill Golf Course, we're going to highlight this example as opposed to how the Swartzes, let me get their last name once again, the Sturkels lost their property. That's an isolated event. Where's the shiny side of this?
The shiny side of this is if you find a benevolent developer who's running a metro district. Okay, if they were given the authorization to have an election and then they continue and they act responsibly, where you know it's kind of nice if you don't need to oversee them, then that's great. But unfortunately, too many of these developers are pretty greedy, and they ask for the moon from residents who can't push back.
And also there are, and Jim, I've seen this so many times. You have benevolence that comes in initially, and then as time goes on, those benevolent ones that, kind of were in partnership with community, they go on with their lives. And then here comes, the ones that are like, this is what I have the right to do. This is the market. And guess what? I don't care what they told you. This is what I'm allowed to do. And time's done changed.
That's right. That's why we have, to go back to government 101, that's why we have checks and balances in our regular governmental system, right? Legislative, executive, judicial. We don't have those checks and balances in metro districts. So if someone chooses to be good, they can still choose to be good. But if they choose to be bad, if you will, there's no check on them.
Jim, it's like someone gave an opportunity for someone to just rob folks legally. Like, I know how gentrification works, and anybody who has just a basic understanding of it is this: you give capital all of the incentives to come into your environment to, capitalize on the environment, and one of the tools, it sounds like, is saying you won't have oversight. Like, you're able to, like, come over here, man, I'm a council person, but I'll let you be a council person. Let you be a council person, and the voters won't have anything to say to you. I'm responsible, but you won't have oversight. Like, it's a great tool to attract capital.
That's right. And keep in mind, it's important for us to keep in mind that the city, when an additional home, let's say, God forbid, that the conservation easement gets lifted off the Park Hill golf course, okay, and they start building homes there, the city still gets all this additional money from these new homeowners, right? They pay what every other Denver, city and county of Denver resident pays. So the city benefits from this, if you will, because there's more tax revenue coming in from those additional homes on the Park Hill golf course. But then again, these extra taxes are being paid specifically just by those people in that particular metro district residents. So the city likes this because they get more revenue.
May wants to know, why do metro districts seem to function well in the suburbs?
I don't see really a lot of evidence that they do function well in the suburbs, because in fact, that's where a lot of the abuse is going on. In Aurora, where there's quite a bit of development going on, again, virtually every new development in Aurora involves metro districts. And we've seen abuse after abuse out there as well. Again, without that kind of checks and balances in place, you're going to have out of control debt, and you're going to have out of control property taxes. So I guess I disagree with the premise of the question, because if anything, Denver, except in the case of Loretta Heights and the Park Hills golf course, we don't have a lot of dirt left, right? I mean, we have people who are already living on the land, if you will. When you just have dirt, this is when this is subject to such abuse.
Wow. If you're finished with your slide, I want you to stop sharing your screen so I can ask you a couple of questions, Jim, before we get out of here.
Sure.
You are absolutely right. Denver, the mile-high income city, does not have a lot of dirt to develop. And one of the last pieces of dirt is the Park Hill golf course. And it's supposed to be huge. Like, it's a huge boon for development, as I see it. So what they were able to do was to start saying, well, we won't, since we can't grow more dirt, we'll let you go higher. You can build things on top of things. You could continue to build things on top of things, and you could build things as tall as the mountains because you can't go out, so you could go up, and we'll let that happen. Like zoning. Do you see that, or am I just making that up? Because a developer can only make so much money on a 2-story, 3-story building, But you can get density if you allow people to say, here's a small piece of land, but you can go 1,000 feet up in the, or 10,000 feet up in the air.
And again, the city has a vested interest in that, because if there's more population within the city, i.e. there's more density, right, because you have high rises and so forth, that's more taxpayers, that's more tax revenue for the city. It's also very lucrative for developers because they get more bang for their buck when they have a higher density development, right? They have more buyers, they basically get more bang for the buck that they're actually selling for. So this is something that as citizens, people like you and me and everyone else who's interested in this kind of issue, we have to come up with some way of disconnecting this common interest that cities and counties have with developers, because as long as those are, as long as they have an incentive to help each other, they're going to keep helping each other, and it's going to be the residents who are paying the price.
At the end of the day, it always goes back to the end user, the resident, the person who has the mortgage, the little person. It just keeps crushing down. Is that just the culture of the Mile High Income City right now? Or, maybe even the state of Colorado? I don't know, but I just know where I'm at right here. I know at my place in Telluride, they're not going to let you build no tall buildings. Like, they're not after any money. Like, when you get there, you're going to have to already have some money. So they're going to not let you block out those mountains and disturb Mountain Village and, downtown Telluride. But here, I don't think there's a dime that Hancock can turn down. I'm like, I don't know if they have the ability to say, let's look after the little guy.
Well, that's an interesting point, Brother Jeff, because Denver itself, as well as the Denver metro area, has become a very hot spot for both in-state as well as out-of-state developers. So to me, the message that would send to me if I was a municipal official is I have more leverage into what I want from them when they want to develop, right? Because they really want to develop here because, quote, this is a hot market. But for some reason, Denver and other municipalities across the state just cave to these guys and give them everything they want. They could demand more. For example, they could say, okay, if you want to develop this parcel of land, 75% of the homes there have to fit under affordable housing definition. I don't know why Denver is not a stronger negotiator with these developers.
Because you build the fastest or second fastest gentrifying city in the nation because you don't have the ability to say no. Like, you don't have the ability to say, I want something for the people who are there. Jim, I got a phone call just yesterday. There were 3 calls. And there's a large educational system that's looking to change the way they pay invoices. And they were calling to say it's an initiative and all these different things. And the first thing I asked, I said, well, where are you calling from? I'm calling from Phoenix. I said, well, you tell them folks when somebody from Colorado calls me and asks, and somebody from Colorado has a job to ask me my opinion, I'll answer them. In the meantime, take me off of this call list. I don't want to hear anything that you have to say. I'm tired of sending my payments, remitting my payments for a basic meter violation to Texas. Like, this city has become a colony. And so when you're talking about all this density and you have these developers that are building the housing, they don't live here. All you're doing is remitting your payments to the mother city, the mother state, the mother, we're being colonized. That's what this is.
Mm-hmm. It's very troubling, and in the process, Brother Jeff, we're losing the character of our city. I personally don't want Denver to look like every other city with a lot of glass and a lot of steel, and that's what in my mind it's turning out to be.
Well, that's what I would always say too, and rest in peace, Jennifer Moulton. I was like, I don't care where you grew up in Boston. You like how it looked there so good. Why don't you stay there? Like you like how them houses were all on top of each other, and now how 5 Points looks and all these other city neighborhoods look. If you liked it so much in Boston, why don't you just stay there and let us have the character of our communities and you participate in, the growth and the development of a neighborhood that includes people who are from here and their vision as well. But it's getting too much. It's getting too expensive, and the end user is being crushed. This last election, Mayor Hancock almost won by the hair on his chin. He just barely skeeted by. And I think the people are saying they're tired of their neighborhoods being filled with Airbnbs. They're tired of investments and all of this stuff. They want to just have a neighborhood where they know their neighbors, they know their kids, they know the local grocer, they know the local school. And that's the character that's being lost. And I believe that, you know, it's at the expense of these folks who are wanting to get their next political position. We got to keep our eyes on this stuff, Jim.
Absolutely. And I want to leave here with a sense of hope, because it may parallel it with some history, as also, you know, very specific to the city and county of Denver. When you know, after World War II, there was a lot of, you know, they wanted to redevelop, and a lot of, like I said, a lot of glass and steel. And then this thing called a historic preservation movement started, so that you couldn't just go in and demolish neighborhoods and just build a lot more glass and steel. And now we have neighborhoods that are protected by historic district designations. That didn't happen before the 60s and 70s. So these problems, even when there's a lot of money behind them, it is a big fight. These problems can be solved if citizens engage and fight back.
Well, we're seeing that. I remember right here in 5 Points, there's a local water company that build warehouses to park their trucks, and they blocked out the view of the mountains and everything, and then they put fake glass fronts, and they just basically build a warehouse in the middle of the business district. And after that took place, the neighbors got together and started working on these historical designations that wouldn't let you change the character of a neighborhood and preserve some of the history. And the reason that took place is because of exactly what you said. People didn't lose hope. They fought back, and they took control of what they want in their neighborhoods. And a lot of them don't want the next big person from another country investing and building up a zillion, you know, units, and everybody remitting their payments somewhere else, and they don't even know who they are, who they live next to. People want community, I believe.
I agree with you. And it you know, the last time I checked, we, meaning the people, the citizens, we're still in charge. And if we want to take charge of this thing, we just have to do the work.
All right. Well, Jim Gibson, I appreciate you sharing the insight. What we're doing is just putting information out there for people to come to their own conclusions. But you should at least know what TIF financing is. You should know what small area plans are. You should know what metro districts are. You should know every tool in the gentrification toolbox. And when you see them being deployed on you, it's really not for your benefit. It's for the benefit of the capital, for the money, for the green. Don't get caught up in that black, Asian, white, brown conversation. Get caught up in what that green is doing, because that's what's driving a lot of what's taking place in this city, this state, and this world. Jim, I appreciate it, bro.
I really appreciate you giving me all this time, because it is a complex issue to cover.
Well, email me that presentation, and anybody who is looking for it, Jim has given us the permission to share it. And if you're a part of the big area plan, you've got to have it. And if you are a part of the small area plan, you must have it. And this is just basic information that we need. All right, Jim, I appreciate you. And do you have any final words, anything that you want to share? And again, condolences to the people of Boulder. We're in another difficult time, but I believe we're going to make it through.
I agree. I don't have anything additional to add, and I'll email that to you as soon as we end here.
All right, I appreciate it. Gerald, watch that door and don't open that door. We are doing a live broadcast. I certainly appreciate Jim and everything that he shared. It was super duper powerful. Super duper powerful. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to email that presentation to Sandy Robnet, because everyone in the small area plan group should have it. I will send it out far and wide. I'm not saying that it is this or it is that. It is something that I believe everyone should be taking a look at. Also, go ahead, really pull up the Denver Post article. It is dated December 5th, 2019. It was updated June 26, 2020. And it says Colorado Metro Districts and developers create billions in debt, leaving homeowners with soaring tax bills. There is a part that says this investigation talks about Colorado Metro District creates billions in debt, leaving homeowners with again, soaring tax bills. I read the first part of it to you as we set up the show. I want to start again where it says Metro districts are taxing authorities created by subdivision developers with the consent of the local government for the sole purpose of selling government-like bonds to finance their projects. Repayment of the bonds is tied to future property taxes assessed to the homes that will eventually be built. Denver Post investigation in the inner workings of the state's 1,800, like the state has 1,800 of these. They have found that there is lack of oversight, conflicts of interest, no checks and balances. Colorado law permits developers to elect themselves to serve on the district boards of directors, then use that position to approve tens of millions of dollars in public financing to their businesses and leverage the property taxes on homes they haven't yet built. No regulation stop these developer-controlled boards from approving arrangements that are financially advantageous to their businesses, allowing them to finance overly ambitious plans without fear of liability, knowing future homeowners ultimately shoulder the burden. Like, is this something you should really be considering paramount? Because didn't the banking institution crumble because of this when they started allowing banks to just like invest any kind of way they want? And do you remember Silverado Bank with one of the Bush kids and all these folks that were here robbing folks and taking the money and running, and there was this financial collapse? Well, you're going to see a developer collapse in the same way you saw leaders allowing. You're going to see the same way that they allowed robo-signing of mortgages and foreclosures and all that. You know, your leaders were at the wheel watching, and they were in partnership with these criminals and looking the other way and saying, that okay, Stapleton a good thing, not a bad thing. I'm like, Chris Herndon, you're a black man and you advocating for Stapleton? Like really? Stapleton a good thing, not a bad thing. I'm like, where do these folks come from? And I hope that we're able to just stave it off until the next election, because Mayor Hancock is at the end of his whatever you want to call he was doing. Chris Herndon is at the end, but I think he'll try and run again and pick up where Hancock left off. We got to watch all of this stuff. We got to watch all of this stuff. Thank you, Jim Gibson, for giving us some more information to look at, to look after. Now that you have it, it's up to you to do something with it. Again, I'm going to court to figure out what my stake is as it relates to a conservation easement, because I don't need to hear the conversation of what people think, assume, have come to conclusions about, when that's the role of the courts. Like, isn't that the role of the court? When you have a disagreement, when you don't understand something, when it's murky, when it's not clear, go to court, figure it out, or do like Jim said, quit digging a hole as you're trying to get out of a hole. Like, if you're in a hole, stop digging. Like Jim said, if you're in a hole, stop digging. Maybe that's a start. All right, you all. Thank you, everybody who's gone to brotherjeff.com, made a donation of any amount. We are powered by the people. This is how we're able to do this. It's because of you, and we appreciate it. We appreciate all our patrons. We appreciate those of you who go to brotherjeff.com, and those of you who use the third option, the great Leanne Wheeler option, the Cash App, and that's how it is spelled. There are a lot of things that caught my attention that I'll be building on, and one of them is that the Mile High Income City doesn't have a lot of dirt left. But Jim said Aurora does. A-Town, a Metro District, is probably coming to you. or is already there. Again, we appreciate each and every one of you. We're keeping the families that are in fresh grief in loss because of whatever happened by a person who didn't respect the sanctity of life. We are in unity with the folks that are better than that. And that's you. That's us. And that's those of us who will work together, not be divided, and just want everybody to have an equal opportunity to succeed without these bandits in government partnering with the bandits to make the game so difficult that you can never pay off. Not your credit card. You'll never pay off that house. And it's not because you can't afford the house. You can't afford the property taxes, and you can't complain about it because you're in a metro district that was elected by an elected governing body to create a governing body that has no process that's accountable to the people. If you go down swinging, you just might score a knockout. Rumble, young man, women, and community. Thank you, Jim Gibson. Rumble.